Of guile I've heard is fish bait. Right? What is fish bait? Something that promises to be yummy to the fish, but what's buried inside? A hook, right? Another way I've heard it. What is debate good for? Debate is good for the hook. Right? What's that?
Are you receiving sound? Because it's not going through the screen. I just want to make sure that your sound is on.
I've tested my sound. I will test it again. Yeah. And microphone. Yeah, it's recording. All right. So what do we know about, what do we gain? What knowledge do we gain about the 144,000 from these verses? Verses 3, 4, and 5.
Those that are still alive at the end.
Okay, with that we've determined that they're the ones that are still alive at the end because they have been sealed on their forehead. And the angels are holding back the four winds, saying, hold, hold, hold. We got to seal this 144,000 before we go. What else?
You know a song.
You know a song. Oh yeah, the song of what song do they? What title do they give it? The song of Moses and the Lamb. What is that a reference to?
Oh, the deliverance.
Deliverance. You may recall, I think it's Exodus 15, I think. Sounds right. Sounds about right. I'd have to look it up to be sure. But they had just crossed through in the Red Sea, right? Walked through on dry land. And they sang, I will sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and rider thrown into the sea. The Lord is God, the Lord my strength, my song has now become my victory. They were singing this song. They could sing this song. Why? Why could they sing this song? They'd been through it, right? So they could sing, only this group could sing this song. Not all the redeemed, only the ones who had been through this final chapter could sing this song. And what else? What else do we learn about them? These are the ones not defiled with fornication, with women, right? For they are virgins. Now there's an interesting thought. Now, in Revelation chapter 14, it talks about fornication, right? He talks about Babylon and how Babylon has caused the nations of the earth to commit fornication. What is that a reference to? How did the nations of the earth commit fornication with Babylon?
Following their rule.
Yeah. A good Bible study to go through is Romans chapter 7. It talks about how we must be divorced from the woman of sin, right? And we must be divorced by the woman of sin. And according to the scriptures, what is the legal way to become divorced from the woman of sin?
Turn our backs on Satan through the blood of the Lamb.
Through the blood of the Lamb. In Romans chapter 7, it says there must be the death of one of the spouses. And we must die to self, right? We must die so that we can be divorced from that woman and be married to Christ, right? And so it seems almost like a contradiction, doesn't it? A little bit. They're redeemed from the earth. They're redeemed from the earth, but they are virgins. How? How are they virgins?
They've been faithful to Christ.
Because they have been faithful to God and Christ. So these are people that have never sinned.
They've been forgiven.
They've been forgiven. They have died to self. They have been resurrected to newness of life. They have been married to the Lamb. And they have received whose righteousness? Christ's righteousness.
But what I'm hearing here, is that there's those who are saved, a whole bunch of people, but they're the people who died and
Yes.
are risen. And then there's this group that lives through the end of time.
This
They will have
particular
a
group.
different experience than those who were laid to rest before Jesus.
That's
came.
right. That's right. All right. Now, one of the things I think is really interesting here is when we talk about being sealed, there is a point in each one of our lives, whether or not we live through the final days or not, when we have decided our final decision, isn't there? There comes a point where we have decided, where we have chosen a side. And so, whether we're part of the 144,000 or not, the seal of God is still important, isn't it? All right.
But it's like that last group though, has an experience that those other ones never went through.
Right, right. In that they have been sealed as a group and probation has closed. Yeah.
What about the number?
What about the number?
I mean, who's going to be the 144,000th person?
I think it's-
Are we talking about a symbolic number here, or?
I have taken that, and this is part of the debate that goes on. I have taken it as the 144,000 are symbolic. 144,000, 12,000 from every tribe, representing all of God's people. Right? Because what did John hear? He heard a military roll call. And then what did he see? He turned and saw a great multitude that could not be numbered. Norm.
Yeah, we never had a problem with it as long as we were below 144,000 membership. Once we got.
Yeah.
144,001.
When you think about 144,000 sounds like a lot of people. If we had a battle and 144,000 people lost their lives in the battle, that would be a significant tragedy. But if we talked about the number of people in the world that have died this past year, 144,000 doesn't even scratch the surface. Because there's 7.3 billion people in the world. And so, yeah, we talk about, and then that's why, to me, it doesn't make sense that 144,000 is a literal number. It's symbolic in that it represents all of God's people, right? And it's 12,000 from every tribe, so every part of God's church, all of God's people are included in this.
The largest number in the Bible mentioned is thousands.
Yeah,
There's
thousands
no-
and thousands of thousands.
There's no millions, there's no billions, it's
Yeah.
just thousands. And it's pretty evident that God, in many of the numbers that we see in the Bible, there are, in a sense, a perfect set of
Mhm.
numbers that he has set.
Yeah,
The number 7 seems to be a very special number.
yeah,
The number 12, and it's pretty obvious that this is symbolic, and that the 12, I mean, there weren't even 12,000 people in the tribe of Dan, so it can't be literal in that
Yeah,
sense. So it's just a symbolic kind of like engulfing number.
yeah. And what final thing do the 144,000 do? And this is my favorite part. They have not been defiled with women. They are declared completely righteous, but they
have their own song.
have their own song. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes, right? I think Mary had a little lamb, right? And the little lamb followed Mary wherever she would go. Well, we got things reversed here. We don't follow Mary. The lamb doesn't follow Mary. We follow the lamb. It's kind of one of these interesting juxtapositions, because Christ declares in John that he is the good shepherd. And we follow the good shepherd. My sheep hear my voice and follow me, for they know my voice. But he is also the lamb. Really kind of interesting. There's so many places in the sanctuary service where that happens. Christ is the lamb. Christ is the high priest. You know, Christ occupies multiple roles in the sanctuary service. And no lie with no deceit was found in their mouth, for they were blameless. Go with me to our next verse here. Let's go to Psalms 122. And actually, no, Hebrews 9. Hebrews 9, 11 to 15. Hebrews 9, 11 to 15. And let's read 11 and 12 first. Speaking of the Lamb serving as high priest.
When Christ came as a high priest of the good things to come, with the greater and more perfect tabernacle not made with hands, that is, not of this creation, not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood, he entered the most holy place once for all, having obtained eternal redemption.
And so Christ is pictured as our what? Our high priest, right? Christ has come as high priest of good things to come. A greater and more perfect tabernacle. What's different about this tabernacle that he came to serve in? Not made with hands, right? It is a heavenly sanctuary. Well, in chapter 8, it talks about Moses made the tabernacle according to the pattern shown to him in the mount. And a lot of debate, by the way, goes on in the Adventist church about what event is being portrayed here. Is this Yom Kippur? Is this the Day of Atonement, or something else? What are your thoughts? Or have you thought about that? They get it fixed?
Yeah, I did, and I got caught with Adventist.
Oh, okay. So we're asking, what event is being portrayed in Hebrews chapter 9? Is it Yom Kippur or something else? Right? They got, if you look at verse 13, the blood of bulls, goats, and bulls, and ashes of a heifer sprinkle on those ceremonially unclean, sanctify them. Those are animals that were used in the Day of Atonement.
But it said, how much more? It's just making reference.
Right. So it's comparing Christ's sacrifice to the sacrifices in the earthly sanctuary. Right.
In verse 7, it's saying that where the high priest goes in once a year.
Right, and that's definitely a reference to the Day of Atonement. But look at verse 18. That is why even the first covenant was not, and the word is incarnito, put into effect, consecrated, without blood. For when Moses had proclaimed every commandment of the law to all the people, he took the blood of calves and goats, along with water, scarlet wool, and hyssop, and sprinkled the scroll, and all the people, saying, "This is the blood of the covenant which God has commanded you to keep." So that's not the Day of Atonement there. That is the consecration of the wilderness tabernacle, the wilderness tent. And so we still have the question, which is it? And why is that an important question to an Adventist? Yeah.
Well, some might make the argument that what John witnessed in that first scene would be the Day of Atonement, and therefore the Day of Atonement has already been completed.
Right.
But if it was actually the consecration of the temple of heaven with Jesus's blood, initiating its service, then that would have been a different event.
Right. Now there's two technical arguments, somewhat technical arguments that can be made in this Hebrews passage. It starts with Hebrews 6 and goes through Hebrews 10. Number one, the phrase "the holiest" is often used throughout the book of Hebrews. There is only one place in the book of Hebrews where Paul refers to the most holy place explicitly. And that's in chapter 9, verse 1. And the word is Hagia Hagion, the Holy of Holies. Every other place that refers to the sanctuary, it uses the words Tahagia, the holies. Every other place it uses the word. So did Christ enter into the holy place or into the most holy place when he ascended after his crucifixion, after his resurrection?
Oh, God, it's in the most, just to the most.
Okay, and so we got, so I'm hearing different things, right? You can see the confusion. All right. There is one more piece of evidence, somewhat technical evidence. The word goat. I forget the actual word, but there are two different words used for goat in the Bible. And it depends on the context as to when they're used. Oh, now I remember. Tragon is the word used for goat in Hebrews chapter 9. Now, the Old Testament wasn't written in Greek. Tragon is a Greek word, but the Septuagint was. The Septuagint was the Greek translation of the Old Testament, written, published by 70 scholars in Alexandria, Egypt, around 200 BC. And if you look up the word, use of the word tragon in the Septuagint, you end up with only one chapter in the Bible. And that's Numbers chapter 7, which is about what event, you guess? Consecration of the temple in the wilderness. And Paul was quoting from, almost always quotes from the Septuagint when he quotes. And so what passage did Paul have in mind when he said goat? Did he have Leviticus 16 with the Day of Atonement? Or did he have Numbers 7, the consecration of the wilderness temple? And the word goat that he used is from the consecration of the wilderness temple. And so in my mind, here's what it works out to. Christ entered into holy places not made with hands. Tahagia, holy places. He entered into all of it. Why? For what purpose? To consecrate it. Because it says, look at verse 19. For when Moses had proclaimed every commandment of the law to the people, he took the blood of calves and goats, tragon, along with water, scarlet wool, and hyssop, and sprinkled the scroll and all the people, saying, "This is the blood of the covenant, which God has commanded you to keep." In the same way, he sprinkled the blood the tabernacle, and how many of the vessels? All the vessels used in worship. According to the law, in fact, nearly everything must be purified with blood, and without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness or remission. And so Moses entered into all the holy places. This is before even the consecration of Aaron as high priest. He went into all the holy places, the most holy, the holy, and he consecrated or blessed, sanctified every one of the elements of the sanctuary. Jesus, at his crucifixion, at his resurrection, he met Mary at the garden and said, "Don't hold on to me because I have not yet ascended to my Father." And he ascended to his Father, and there he consecrated, or put to consecration, put into effect the heavenly sanctuary with his blood that he offered how many times? Once. And so the Day of Atonement is something altogether different, something that occurs in the end of days. So that put aside, hopefully, has this been new to any of you? No? If you're interested in researching it, Richard at Andrews University, Richard M. Think of it.
I was confused on that. I said, holy of holies. He doesn't enter the holy of holies until the end of days.
Right. And the only verse in the Hebrews that refers to the holy of holies is 9:1, chapter 9, verse 1. where he mentions the Ark of the Covenant. And he says, Hagia Hagion. Yeah. All right. So that said, Jesus Christ is our Lamb and our High Priest. Go to Psalm 122. Psalm 122. Let's get into the Psalms. Yay! We're going to let the title bear some fruit there. Psalm 122. Yeah. It's these Psalms aren't very long. It's a song of ascent of David. These were songs that were sung on the way up the Temple Mount at the feast seasons. Someone read, well, let's read all of it.
I was glad when they said to me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Our feet have been standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is built as a city that is compact together, where the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, to the testimony of Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord, for thrones are set there for judgment, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and may they prosper who love you. Peace be within their walls, your walls, prosperity within your palaces. For the sake of my brethren and companions, I will now say, peace be with you. Because of the house of the Lord, our God, I will seek your good.
So verses 1 and 2. Let us go into the house of Yahweh, right? Our feet are standing within your gates. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, city of peace. And so it's described as what? You have to go down, sideways, up into Jerusalem. It's called God's holy mount. And in Revelation, by the way, how is Jerusalem referred to? Is it referred to as this city in the Middle East? No, it's described as a city that comes down from heaven and lands on this earth, right? It is his city, his holy hill, his mountain, the mountain of Zion. Let's go to Psalms 15. Psalms 15.
So, you mean-
15, yeah. It's another short one here. Talking about, so 122 is about going up to God's holy hill. Who may dwell in God's holy hill? Someone read the whole thing.
Walks upright and works righteous, and speaks the truth in his heart. He who does not backbite with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor does he take up a reproach against his friend, in whose eyes a vile person is despised, but he honors those who fear the Lord. He who swears to his own hurt and does not change. He who does not put out his money at usury, nor does he take a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be moved.
Does that sound like the seal of God? No? Shall not be moved. Sealed, right? The idea being that you have decided, you have made up your mind. I will not be moved.
He speaks the truth in his heart.
Yeah. And what did he say in Revelation 14? In whose mouths are no fish bait, no deceit, right? He speaks the truth. What about who despises the vile? That stuck out to me because we talk a lot in our culture about hate. And I think it gets kind of abused. Should we hate?
No.
Let me put it this way. My wife does not like little critters, mice. And our cat loves to catch them, loves to catch gophers, and leaves half their body lying on the floor. And what is your instinctive reaction to having to pick up and clean up that mess?
I want to vomit, quite frankly.
She hates pieces of gopher. Shouldn't that be our reaction to sin?
Yes.
It should make us want to vomit. Yeah,
It's. Hate's not a strong word.
it
You
is.
can dislike something and
Yeah.
not hate it. But to hate something is against God's way. So
I think
I
that
dislike a lot of things in my life, but I don't hate it. Anybody.
And hate anybody. That's an important distinction. But how should you view your own sin? Should you just dislike it a little bit?
Probably why we keep sinning, we don't.
You
hate
should
it enough.
hate it. You should loathe it. It should revolt you. Is the way what I'm saying. That's exactly the point. We dink around, we play around with sin. Oh, it's not that bad. I'm not that bad. My sinful self is a cancer to the universe. And so hate is certainly part of, at least what I'm trying to say, hate is part of the formula. Not that we hate people. Because God has died for who? Everybody. But sin should make us want to throw up. Particularly our own sin.
I think as Christians, we sometimes will be light on the sinner because we want to love the sinner, and by doing so, endorse the sin.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is something that is a fine line that as Christians, we have to walk, in that we have, when something is being done that we know is destructive, that will destroy, that is against God's law, do we treat it lightly, or do we treat it as something serious?
Right, or
But-
do we
but
not
how-
do anything to get through even like the situation?
Right.
Like you're in a situation, maybe even with people that you love, but you're kind of like in an environment that you hate.
Absolutely. Think of
If
it.
you see someone
Yeah.
who is doing a sin that is destroying the body. Say,
An addict.
we were in one church years ago. Where. In the church, two separate families. Two parents had an affair. From two different families. Divorced their spouses, remarried. Continued going to church. And every day every Sabbath going to church and seeing accepted there the example of adultery that occurred there was difficult. Now, do they still deserve forgiveness and things like that? Yes. But maybe there needs to be a discipline, a punishment for the sin that they brought into the church and displayed to the church. I moved up here. And like the first year, someone had an affair. And they were disciplined and asked no longer to move their membership to another church. And it was so refreshing to see that, they were still allowed to be Adventist, they weren't disowned from being Adventist, but because of their sin and it was so public.